You know, the rain in Chicago at 2 a.m. doesn't wash the city clean. It just makes the grit stick harder. And that night, standing on the lakefront bridge, I saw the kind of grit that sticks to a soul, the kind that tries to drag you under. My name is Layla Jones, and 3 days before that night, my life was a blur of fluorescent lights and desperation. I was clocking 80-hour weeks at St. Jude's ER, a CNA, a certified nurse's assistant, basically a professional lifesaver who couldn't save her own. My feet were permanently bruised, my scrubs had more stains than a Jackson Pollock painting, and my one ritual was counting change at the corner market just to afford ramen for my grandma Estelle. Estelle, she's the reason for everything. She's battling stage 3 lymphoma, and the bank, well, the bank doesn't care about chemotherapy cycles or generational memories. The orange foreclosure notice taped to our front door was less a piece of paper and more a neon sign flashing my failure. $52,000 due in 3 weeks. And those 60-odd scholarship rejection letters? They all said the same thing. Insufficient community involvement. How am I supposed to volunteer when every waking moment is spent in a financial quicksand trying not to drown? I was running on pure adrenaline and shame, trying to finish my nursing informatics degree online. The irony was brutal. I was studying advanced cardiac life support, trying to save hearts, while my own broke a little more every time I looked at Estelle. So when my supervisor texted about picking up another graveyard shift, double pay, I didn't even hesitate. Yes, because what choice does a girl from the South Side have, really? Before I hit the hay for a precious 4 hours, I always trace this tiny, faded scar on my right hand. It's my talisman. I got it 10 years ago, when I was 16. I was walking home from my first CNA interview, a terrified kid, and I saw this man, this well-dressed white guy, bleeding out in an alley off Wabash. He'd been mugged, stabbed, left for dead. I should have walked past. It was dangerous. I was alone. But something, that little voice Estelle taught me to listen to, said stop. I pressed my cheap jacket to the wound, held his hand, and when the paramedics loaded him up, I pressed my mother's silver angel pin into his palm. It was the last physical thing I had of my mom, but I whispered, "Angels watch over good people." He promised he'd find me, he'd thank me, he'd help. I waited. For months, then years. But you learn pretty quick that rich white men don't keep promises to black girls from the South Side. Not really. Still, that night, it made me a nurse. It taught me that helping people, even when it costs you, is the best feeling in the world. Then came the night on the lakefront bridge. Rain hitting the concrete like a drum solo gone mad. I was soaking wet, walking the long way home. I always took the bridge route when it rained. The sound of the water was the only thing that calmed my spinning head. And that's when I saw him. He was wearing a tailor-made coat, Italian leather shoes, all ruined. But the ruin in his eyes, that was what caught me. He was gripping the steel railing like it was the only thing keeping his universe from dissolving. "Sir, please don't," I called out. My voice was a thin wire against the storm, but it got his attention. He turned slowly. His face was hollow, rain mixing with what I knew were tears. "You don't understand," he choked out. "I killed her. I killed my own daughter." My nursing instinct kicked in. I kept my distance, not too close to seem threatening, not too far to lose him. He whispered a name over and over. "Claire. Claire. Claire." He told me everything. Texting about a merger, driving through a red light, the truck hitting Claire's side, the instant death, the ex-wife, the funeral security. The man was drowning in guilt. A classic high-stakes, type of corporate collapse. Everything about him screamed Miles Harrington. That was his name, wealth and privilege, except the complete, crushing defeat in his posture. But as I inched closer, fighting the wind, I noticed it. That little twitch where he favored his left shoulder. And that faint, distinctive crescent scar, just above his temple. My breath hitched. I'd seen that scar before. "Miles," I said, my voice suddenly raw, ignoring the howling storm. "I work in the ER. I've held parents while they screamed. They would give everything for what you still have. Time. You are still here. Claire isn't, but you are. You can still honor her memory." He finally looked at me, really looked. That's when I dropped my own shield. "I understand more than you know," I confessed. "When my mama died, I chose $28 over coming home on time. I stood on this exact bridge, thinking about jumping, thinking how easy it would be compared to living with the guilt. What stopped me? A stranger. 10 years ago, I saved a stranger's life. Gave him the only thing I had of my mother, an angel pin. I saw the flicker of recognition in his eyes, but I pressed on, describing the scar, the left shoulder injury. What did you give him? Miles asked, his voice trembling, sounding utterly remote now. My mother's angel pin. Silver. I told him, angels watch over good people. Then, Miles reached into his expensive coat, pulled out a small velvet pouch, and held up a tarnished silver pin. My angel pin. My world stopped. The rain, the thunder, it all dissolved. The girl I've been looking for, he whispered. You saved me then. You saved me tonight. I collapsed against the railing, finally letting the exhaustion take over. You're him. You're my angel. We were connected. 10 years of mutual salvation, linked by a scrap of silver and a choice I made when I was just a scared kid. I guided him away from the railing toward the covered bus stop, not letting go of his arm. We sat in silence, the storm raging around our little bubble. I refused his cash, his credit cards. I needed him to understand. My help wasn't transactional. I want you to live, Miles. Live like Claire would want you to. With purpose. But as I finally got up to leave, I saw it. Scattered business cards and receipts, and a small, faded hospital bracelet from 10 years ago. He kept everything. Everything. What if I told you I could solve all your problems? He called out as I walked away. The house, the bills, everything. I stopped, but didn't turn around. Then I'd say you still don't understand why I helped you. Angels watch over good people, and good people help each other. No payment required. I walked away into the storm, letting him sit with the full, heavy realization of what goodness truly looks like. A tired nurse walking into a hurricane to save a man who had everything, and yet had been looking for her, the one person who gave him hope, for a decade. The next morning, Miles Harrington wasn't in his penthouse office, fielding calls from lawyers about damage control. He was driving his black Mercedes through the South Side, feeling the weight of that little angel pin in his palm. He found the address from the old hospital records, 1419 South Drexel, a small, faded blue house. And there it was, glaring at him, the orange foreclosure notice. Everything clicked. His angel was losing her home while he was sitting in guilt-ridden luxury. He parked and watched. Eventually, my grandma Estelle came out, moving slowly with her walker. She saw the notice and just sank onto the steps. Miles knew he had to talk to her first. Ma'am, my name is Miles Harrington. 10 years ago, your granddaughter saved my life. Estelle's eyes widened. Sweet Jesus, you're the man from the alley. I spent 6 hours in that ER waiting for you. Layla wouldn't leave until they said you were okay. It was the confirmation he needed. He told her about Claire, about the bridge, about the pin. He told her that Layla had saved him twice. Estelle then did something that completely shattered him. She went inside and brought out a shoe box, 10 years of letters. Letters addressed to the angel man. She told him, Layla wrote you a letter every year. She never mailed them, but she wrote them, telling you about nursing school, about her dreams. She thought you forgot her. I mean, imagine. For 10 years, this billionaire had been searching for the girl who gave him the will to live, and she had been carrying him, writing to him, all along. Miles opened the most recent letter. It talked about the scar on her hand. A good scar, she called it. A reminder that love sometimes means risking everything for strangers. He knew then, he couldn't just write a check. He had to give her a life that matched her soul. 2 hours later, I dragged myself up the walkway after another double shift. Exhausted, defeated. And then I saw them, Estelle and Miles, sitting together, talking. He stood up, looking clean, composed, the man he was before the grief. He pulled out the angel pin. Layla, you saved my life twice. I've been looking for you for 10 years. I sank onto the steps. The exhaustion was gone, replaced by this massive, overwhelming wave of destiny. He didn't waste time. He pulled out a folder, clean and professional. I run the Harrington Crisis Intervention Foundation now. We help people who are at the breaking point, financial, medical, emotional. I'm offering you a job, Director of Crisis Response. He rattled off the numbers. $75,000 salary, full health benefits for Estelle, tuition covered for my BSN. And then he laid down the signing bonus check. I looked at the amount, $52,000. Enough to pay off the house, exactly. I stammered. Miles, I don't have the business experience, I don't. He cut me off, and this is the part I'll never forget. The The moment he truly honored me. You have something more valuable than any degree, Layla. You talked a suicidal billionaire off a bridge. You bled your own blood trying to save a stranger in an alley. That instinct to save, even when it costs you everything, that is exactly what people in crisis need. And then the kicker. He said he was establishing the Angela Jones Memorial Fund, a scholarship for emergency medicine students, named after my mother. I had to put my head in my hands. It wasn't charity. It was justice. It was purpose. It was finally getting the resources to do the work I was born to do. I looked at Estelle's face, no longer worried, but hopeful. I looked at the check. I whispered, "Yes, God. Yes." 6 months later, the foundation wasn't operating out of some sterile office park. It was in a renovated community center in my old neighborhood, and we called it the Angel's Landing. We had a wall dedicated to Claire, honoring the girl who believed in guardian angels. We didn't just prevent suicides, we addressed root causes. We saved 847 families in the first year, prevented 23 suicide attempts, and our model, the Jones Protocol, human connection first, was cutting repeat emergency calls by 78%. CNN ran a special, calling me the former night shift nurse who revolutionized crisis response. 3 years later, Miles and I stood on the lakefront bridge again, but we weren't alone. We were joined by 47 people whose lives we had saved. Among them was Sophia Martinez, a former caller who was now a junior at Northwestern, training to be a counselor. Miles made the announcement, $100 million donation to create a national crisis response network, with me as executive director. He pulled out 47 angel pins, giving one to each person we'd saved, reminding them, "You are someone's angel, and they are yours."